A legend in the world of computing, engineering, education, and geekery. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Steve Wozniak. What do you think it means to be an inventor, and how do you look at this idea of being an inventor?
My gosh, sometimes I think about, we got products in the world, and the purpose of engineering is to create the things that make our life better. So make a new version of things, and that's sometimes you just take something to make it a little bit better, but the way it is. And I call that a type of innovation. But real inventors are the sort of people that go around and get an idea. They dream a lot, they think a lot in their head. An idea that most people would just discard because I don't have the skills to do it. But inventors usually have little skills. They can go into a laboratory, wire things together, write some software, and actually create a little model, test their ideas, and they just constantly want to explore. Can I do something else? Here's a neat idea, something for fun, and it doesn't have to have necessarily like money purpose. They're not doing it for companies. They're and invention usually is you think of a totally different device that solves a problem people have with maybe many fewer steps than the devices that you could have made better. Making the devices better is innovation, but a whole different approach, something that's so different than we've ever had, that's invention.
Well, I think one of the things that came up in Eric's talk is about this idea of experimentation and the importance of experimentation in invention. Is that also part of your life and your experience?
A funny thing is, I don't know, when I go back to especially all my Apple designs, everything, I succeeded in everything and didn't have a lot of those failures of experimentation. But you know what, I had worked a whole life of building little projects that I didn't realize how valuable and incredible they were, from 5th grade on. Computers in high school, I could design any computer in the world in 2 days. Right. All these little things, I didn't know they had any meaning. I even came out of high school not being able to design any computer, but not thinking I ever would do it as a job, because I thought engineers did analog things like television, and I was very shy. I had no idea. I thought computers are only done for the military and in places called research. Yeah, I thought, well, okay, I'm going to be an engineer, but I ran into Steve Jobs, and he had passions to be the important person that moves society forwards, and I had these incredible technical skills, and it was just a perfect combination. We were both very young, in our young 20s, no money, no business experience, no business courses in a university, just scrambling around like young, naive, young people. Here's an idea, here's an idea, here's an idea. But Steve definitely wanted to always start companies and turn things into money, because that was the way you got important and big. And I just wanted to develop little products because it was fun to spot a video game, the first video game, the arcade game, Pong. Whoa, I had to have one, but I was so good at designing. It took 28 little $1 chips. I just wanted it for myself. So every time I designed something for myself, Steve found a way to turn it into money. But it was very lucky combination. Yeah. And that was early years, before Apple. Steve's personality took more of a real resolving itself in the start of Apple, and he really became a lot more mature when he returned to Apple. IBM was once the largest company in the world in terms of value ever. They said Apple recently took that position, but in terms of dollars that changed per year, IBM was there. Why? They had this big, huge mainframe called the 1401, back in the days. It cost 25 million of today's dollars. They sold 30,000 of them. Some of you could do some estimates in your head, and you're going to come up with huge numbers of why IBM is a big company that's still around. A lot of money, and then in later years, does a big company just sort of dissipate, and youngsters just out of college, or not even finishing college, start companies that kind of change things and take over the world? IBM did an amazing thing with the IBM 360 model. My second year of college, I got to program that machine and see a beautiful architecture that matched the programming methods. Every address in the machine was the result of a base register, an address assigned by the operating system, plus what the programmer wrote. And that way, any program you wrote for a tiny little machine with small registers, up to the huger machines, your program didn't have to change, and it would work forever. And as your company grew and got bigger computers, it would work forever. I loved that architectural thinking. I mean, I really was trying to push for us to do it when we had the great microprocessor that became our Macintosh and our Lisa computer. When that Motorola 68000 came out, it allowed that method, but it also allowed the older method that got you into a lot of software problems, and eventually there's big problems for Apple. So IBM meant a lot of good things to me in my life. On my business card today, I put my phone number. It isn't written anywhere, but it's just a bunch of punches, like an old IBM punch card. I grew up in the days of punch cards. You'd sit at a machine, punch some holes in cards, they'd read into a machine, and a computer could read holes. Because computers couldn't really read text, and you couldn't give terminals to all the programmers to use. So we students in college would just do punch cards. And one of my favorite stories was at Berkeley. There were all these key punches for the computer that everyone had classes for, and at finals time it took 40 minutes waiting to get on a key punch to update your program and run it again to see what the next error was. There were 2 older key punches. They were all IBM key punches. 2 older key punches for a different computer that was not in use, so nobody was on those key punches. Well, if you hit the parentheses key, you got the wrong holes. They were different key punches, different holes, different characters. I discovered that if you touch type, I did everything by touch typing. I was such a typist that in high school I beat the girls in typing too, actually, for speed. But some of the special characters on a key punch had to use 2 fingers on the same hand, on the left hand. And I knew all those. I touched type without ever looking at the keys. And so I went over to those odd key punches that were from a different machine. And when I typed on them, they printed the wrong characters, but they got the right holes, and all the computer cared about was holes. So I actually I was that geeky. I could look at the holes and tell what it was.
Well, one of the things that I think has been part of your life and the way in which you've looked at your work is this elegance of design, this making sure that theory and practice fit together really well, and you do good design, good architecture, how does that affect the work that you do?
You know, it was really kind of accidental. It wasn't like I said, this is how you should do it. I stumbled into all these computer projects that, looking back, you'd never know somebody that young was building these huge projects with hundreds of parts and did all this computer stuff. And then I was teaching myself to design computers. But every weekend, I would shut my door. I had nobody doing it with me. No friends, no parents, no teachers. We didn't have computers in schools. We didn't have books on how to do it. I just taught myself. Here's books on parts. Here's a book that describes a computer. Can I make this computer from Hewlett-Packard, from Variant Corporation, from Digital Equipment? Can I figure out how to design it on paper? And then after I got kind of good at that, and I designed more computers and more computers, I said, can I design the same computer with some newer parts and use fewer? And it was a game. I made up a game. Use the fewest parts. Well, that equates to simplicity and elegance. And I used to always joke, I'm just so lazy, I want to design something that doesn't take much time to build. Not that I could ever afford the part to build one of my computers, but I just designed them over and over, got so good. And I had all these tricks in my head that were so odd, they would never be in a book. So I knew that I was doing things that probably nobody else in the world could do that well. And I still didn't think I'd have a job designing computers. All through school in my life, I knew that teachers were so important. Engineers got paid higher, my dad said, but I still wanted to have some way of teaching. The kids are really the future. And once you get here, you really know that we've created a world that's got a lot of messy problems. And thank God there's younger ones coming up that are going to clean it up a lot better than we did.
Yes.
You always say that, but I think it gets worse every generation. And so I always paid attention in psychology courses in the universities. I wanted to pay attention to how child's minds develop and everything related to teaching. And then eventually I went and I started teaching voluntarily, elementary school through middle school, how to use computers in every way to make your homework more presentable and to do better jobs, and use computer technology like spreadsheets and graphs and charts and things. And I taught for 8 years secretly. And because I didn't want press near the kids, so no press. So a lot of people don't know I did that, but it was in my heart. I felt, it's easy when you have money to give computers to schools. A lot of people do that, but your time is a lot more precious than money. And if you give your own time, that means you really believed in it.
So what happened to the very first production Apple I? You were telling me.
Oh my gosh, yes. Recently, an Apple I, there's very few of them. This was the computer that gave the formula to the world of what it took to make a personal computer. Oddly enough, I rushed it out at a computer club, and it was after I was giving it away for free, giving away the designs to all these people that were talking about we were going to change communication, we were going to change education, we were going to change the importance of the little guy that knew how to program was going to be important in his company because he'd have a little machine that could do more than their mainframes. We're talking that talk, and I gave it away. Steve Jobs came and saw it, and that was where he said, let's start a company. I was so loyal to Hewlett-Packard, I impeached them. I implored them to please build this machine. and they turned me down 5 times for personal computer. But this was the formula. So the Apple I, there's very few of them that got built because I hadn't designed it as a computer. I designed it as a terminal. I quickly added on the pieces to make it a computer, but the Apple II was the beautiful computer, and that came very quickly. So that was going to really make the industry go. The Apple I is the formula. There's so few of them. Rarity makes something valuable. An Apple I just sold for $670-some thousand. Well, I said it should have been $666,666.66 because I've been into repeating digits all my life. I play number games and phone numbers like that. So it sold for that. Well, there is one Apple I that was the first one. Well, there was the prototype I made. That's the rarest. And that one's sort of lost. I think Apple lawyers got it for a lawsuit and I never got it back. But the first Apple I we ever manufactured and delivered, there was a girl in our computer club, a woman, and she talked about taking computers into elementary schools and teaching kids how computers work. I believed in that so much because I had learned by stumbling into documents in elementary school that nobody could ever find on how computers work. I loved that so much. I drove Steve Jobs up to California to visit her and hear about how she did that. And then when we made the Apple I wanted to give her the first one. And Steve Jobs wouldn't go along with it, so he made me buy it. I actually paid for it, and I gave it to her. So she's got the first one. I said, well, buddy, that was for education, and I don't know if she'll ever sell it.
So it's somewhere in it.
Might be that valuable to her. She's got it for real. I'm sure she would get a huge amount of money for it. There's only one first Apple I. Going back, a lot of my life I thought, a computer can never be a brain, because the first program I ever wrote in my life that was sophisticated, I was in high school, we didn't have computers, but a teacher got arranged for me to go to a business and learn how to program a computer. Wow, I was Mr. Special. And I wrote a program, a chess program called the Knight's Tour of Chess, where the knight piece has to hit every single square exactly once. And I wrote a program that bounced the knight around, and when it got stuck and didn't have the solution, it backed up and tried a different route. And the computer could do a million things a second. This was unbelievable. Nothing came out, so I must have had a bug in my program. And I analyzed it the next week and printed out chessboards, and I discovered it was going to get the solution, but it was going to take 10 to the 25th years. What that meant was that a computer that's fast, a billion things a second, a trillion things a second, can't solve a problem. You need a human brain that knows an approach to solving the problem. It's called an algorithm or a method to solve a problem. And that we don't know how the brain works, but computers are nothing like it. And all these little artificial intelligence things where a computer picks up a blue ball and puts it in a blue bucket, that's not even close to a real brain the way it thinks. And I was convinced we'd never get there. And when, in recent times, Ray Kurzweil wrote a book about the singularity, when computers will kind of equal the intelligence of a human, and I kind of poo-pooed it and said, it's not going to happen. We don't know how the brain's wired. But I have changed my mind in recent times. First of all, I had an incident a long time ago. I was in the airport in San Francisco about to fly to Orlando with my kids to Disney World, and I got a phone call, and I wrote a little message that we had the first message pad. The Newton message pad was the first PDA in the world. You could handwrite with a little stylus, handwrite words, and it could figure them out. And I handwrote a message to myself. Sarah, dentist, Tuesday, 2 p.m. Just on a little notepad. And then I saw a button called Assist, and I clicked the Assist button. It opened up my calendar. On Tuesday at 2 p.m., it put in the word dentist, and it put Sarah out of my contact list, my daughter. And I was shocked, and that changed my life forever. Forever. I said, I want to talk human ways, where you don't have to think real deeply about procedures. I want to just handwrite things, I want to speak them, and I want the computers to understand me. Well, now we've gotten up to, you used to ask smart people with brains difficult questions. Who do you ask now? It starts with G-O, and it's not God. You ask Google, and you get back all these answers, We didn't design the internet to be a brain. We sort of stumbled onto the fact that a lot of information and some organization of it, sorting, searching, there was Yahoo, and then there was Alta Vista, now there's Google for our search engines. That somehow does a lot of what the brain used to do. And we stumbled onto it by accident. Now we've got these phones that you're talking to. We've got Watson playing on television, theoretically hearing questions and answering them like it's a thinking person. And it's making me think we're on this path. That is the direction all computers are going right now. And it's towards understanding when I speak human words to human people. I make mistakes in my words. I pause and correct myself. Eventually, computers are going to understand all that, you know. And it's really taking place in the big data centers in the enterprise world that are connected to the database of the world, which is the internet. I mean, everybody thinks, oh my gosh, I love my little portable device. It does so much. Our little smartphones are really almost everything you do that's significant. You know, maybe you have a game that's built in. Okay, that's fine. But a lot of the significant stuff you have goes out to the web somewhere. It has other servers. The enterprise servers in all the big data centers are doing most of the calculations based on most of the hard disk-based data of the entire world, and that's what's coming back to you. So I think that's really the key to future intelligence. Now, are the devices that we have in our hand going to eventually be conscious, have feelings and everything? I hope so, and I think that's a possibility. And it's going to be pretty amazing because already look how close it is to you. You know, you carry it with you like it's another limb and use it. And I think someday you'll just be asking, it's going to be your best friend. It's going to know your heart and soul and everything. I mean, and that's going to be good for education because finally you'll have one teacher, all your own, and a computer is not just a device that helps you get taught. You're going to have your own teacher and you go at your own speed in the directions you want to go.